The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, 3 students killed, 5 still in critical condition after a mass shooting at Michigan State University. Also on the program today, Nikki Haley declares her presidential run, such as it is. East Palestine residents report dead fish and chickens, but are told, don't worry about it. Consumer prices slow in their rate of acceleration year over year. Biden to name Lael Brainerd and his top economic advisor, and Jared Bernstein, chair of the Council for Economic Advisors. Pence to fight subpoena from the special counsel. Senate today will confirm Biden's 100th federal judge. It beats Trump's 84 at this time in his administration. Huge protests in Israel over Netanyahu's plan to cronyise the judiciary. The Moldovan president claims that Russia is plotting a coup in her country. Biden's defense of Social Security driving Republicans bonkers. And Starbucks found to have illegally punished and threatened workers. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is a Tuesday. Happy Valentine's Day, Emma.
Thanks.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's I have some affinity for this holiday that is limited to the fact that the first commercial Valentine's Day card was developed in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1848.
The Paris of Massachusetts.
The Paris of 1980s. It's a temporal thing in terms of when it was Paris. Now, I should just add, because I know there's people who are going to be sticklers about it, that supposedly Taft's son,
William Howard
Taft's son, may have developed the first commercial Valentine's Day card a couple years earlier in Grafton, Massachusetts. But I think that's revisionist history and probably just propagated by the Tafts, who were trying to maintain some semblance of notoriety, after...
It's like Edison and Tesla all over again.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that going on. So that's the best I could say about that holiday.
I was trying to find...
Smiley face.
Yeah.
Also developed in Worcester.
Oh.
The yellow smiley face.
That's another commodifiable emotion.
Yep. The first black professional bicyclist. Also from Worcester.
Wow.
Yep. There's more of this, folks, so don't change your podcast dials or your YouTube channel.
Central Page broke the color line in baseball in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Ooh.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
The
guys ever
first
seen Jersey
professional
Shore?
no-hitter thrown in Worcester. So, all right, it's not a big deal.
Bradley, where are the New Jersey facts? Yeah, Sinatra,
Jersey putting up a goose
New
egg.
Jersey,
Right.
first place for open flame to be burned, right? All right, let's get to this. We got a lot to cover today, but we should start with this because it's quite possible we will never mention this again. Nikki Haley has declared that she is running for president. Honestly, it's possible that we may never mention her again.
Unless Trump does something funny about it.
Unless Trump says something funny about it. It's really going to come down to what is her nickname that he gives her. Now, he may not give her one.
I mean, how does it fit into Meatball Ron? Because if she's kind of running to be Ron's VP, right?
Meatball Ron and Nikki Tikka Masala. That's he's going to do something horrible like that.
Nikki.
Oh, that's a lot of sauce for one dish.
That's right.
Oof.
I don't think so. I don't know. It's too bad she's a horrible liar or whatever. We'll find out what he's going to say.
Nikki.
Deep State Nikki. That's a good one. Yep. Here is Nikki Haley and her opening bid to be president of the United States. I mean, remember, Haley she tried to do two things. She tried to be, she agreed to be Trump's ambassador to the UN and then tried to be a never Trumper sort of afterwards. Mm-hmm. And it's too bad she chose the wrong choice twice. Can't do that twice.
She took the blue pill.
The railroad tracks divided the town by race. I was the proud daughter of Indian immigrants. Not black, not white. I was different. But my mom would always say your job is not to focus on the differences, but the similarities. And my parents reminded me and my siblings every day how blessed we were to live in America. Some look at our past as evidence that America's founding principles are bad. They say the promise of freedom is just made up. Some think our ideas are not just wrong, but racist and evil. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have seen evil. In China, they commit genocide. In Iran, they murder their own people for challenging the government. And
pause it. Wait a second. She's saying she's seen evil on TV? Is that what the argument?
Well, I guess when she traveled for the UN stuff.
That's why she's listening.
Oh, did they take her? Did they take her to the Uyghur camps?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the Saudis? Is she gonna do the Saudi Arabian government
next,
now?
Yeah. Did she go to Iran? I mean,
Can we just say the thing about our fun and ideas? You listed a thing that was racist. Like it was the lane of the train tracks was explicitly racist.
Yeah.
Why do we need to get in the Constitution? Like it's not your job to look at the differences. That's apparently the railroad's job.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what difference would it have made if you're not white and you're not black if there was no problem with race?
Also, I was kind of squinting to see what was on her necklace because I thought she might have been brazen enough to have a cross out there, but that's not what she has on. It's like something else. But
very odd way to start off with let me talk about my identity and how completely irrelevant it is to me.
I'm above it.
Because nobody was conscious of it whatsoever, except for the fact that I realized I wasn't white and I wasn't black. How did you find that out?
Our ideas are not just wrong, but racist and evil. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have seen evil. In China, they commit genocide. In Iran, they murder their own people.
Also, I'm sorry, but the people from 1619 Project didn't say America was evil. They said it was racist.
Same thing.
How can we really face up against genocides in other countries if we're going to act like we didn't do it?
Oh, you're so woke.
We did the good genocide here.
Come on.
We have a little bit maybe to teach the world.
That was over 200 years ago in some limited cases.
Yeah, at least the start of it.
I mean, okay. All right. It was at least over 75 years ago, at least in terms of full-on genocide. Okay, so come on. Jesus, Matt. Continue.
Challenging the government. And when a woman tells you about watching soldiers throw her baby into a fire, it puts things in perspective. Even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. I was born and raised in South Carolina, so I have seen the very best of our country. People here threw out the old, tired political establishment and demanded accountability.
Pause
for
it.
their
Wait, was
tax
she
dollars.
talking about the coup that they had down there to throw all the politicians after Reconstruction? Is that what she's talking about? They threw out. They literally did throw out. They killed some too.
Yeah, Charleston's so beautiful. Who made all those buildings?
Yeah, who built that?
And what was the purpose of that city?
Oh my God! Go ahead.
Industry reports called us the beast of the Southeast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which I love. People came by the thousands for fresh starts. Moms and dads held their heads up high. Children learned that it was always
It's a great day in South Carolina. It's a great day. It's a great day. A great day.
a great day in South Carolina. We were strong. We were proud. And when evil did come,
Police in
What kind of
South
evil?
Carolina
Oh,
are
yikes.
looking for a gunman following a shooting at a church in
Several
downtown
victims. We
Charleston.
don't know the severity.
we turned away from fear toward God and the values that still make our country the freest and greatest in the world. We must turn in that
Wait, I'm
direction.
sorry. What was that? What was that shooting about, Nikki Haley?
Let's not get into
Who did it?
detail.
And then who were the cops in your state who took the dude out from McDonald's after he shot up a bunch of black people?
He was hungry. I'm sure there were good people on both sides. I'm sure there were good people on both
Well, this
sides.
is interesting Rhodesia about Nikki Haley.
It's just that was not a smooth transition from the I was the UN person to the South Carolina thing, but
This is amazing.
And the values that still make our country the freest and greatest in the world.
They need like
We
a
must
record
turn
scratch.
in that direction again. Republicans have lost the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections.
Yet they
That
still have
has to
taken
change.
power and appointed
Biden's
3
record
Supreme
is
Court
abysmal.
justices.
Sound like a
That
rhino,
shouldn't
Nikki.
come as a surprise. The Washington establishment has failed us over and over and over
now
again.
happy music.
She was in
And your
the
voters.
Time
former
for a new
administration.
generation of leadership to rediscover fiscal responsibility, secure our border, and strengthen our country, our pride, and our purpose.
Pause it. One thing you cannot see if you're listening to this, you don't have to go backwards. They put up those chyrons, and that is actually a pre-bought chyron package that you can get every time you run for Republican office. They just throw those in, so they already have that template already there.
She saved some money on that.
Yep.
Some people look at America and see vulnerability. The socialist left sees an opportunity to rewrite history. China and Russia are on the march. They all think we can be bullied, kicked around. You should know this about me. I don't put up with bullies.
I raise my
And when you
hands
kick back,
at the
it
UN.
hurts them more if you're wearing heels. I'm Nikki Haley, and I'm running
Girl
for
boss.
president.
Honestly, I have to say I would give the editing and the pacing of that somewhere around like a D or an E as a grade. I don't think I've ever seen anything that was so schizophrenic. Like they really did need the record scratch and then put in the sort of some type
You
of
probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
And outside of her being a woman, that was like the most standard and also really stale Republican presidential ad. That could have been in 2004. I mean,
When you kick back, it hurts worse when you're.
what?
your
You,
heels?
oh, so
Yeah.
Oh my god!
There you go.
you're poking people's eyes out with your stilettos, psycho?
I appreciate that it almost seems like she was a little surprised when she says, "I'm Nikki Haley and I'm running for president," and then she's like, oh, "Right, oh my god, am I really doing
That's
this?"
me.
No, then she
because
just
she's
cut,
not.
And then it just cuts back to her going, "I'm kidding, not really."
If
Not
only those
really.
people at that church would have been Indian, maybe they wouldn't have been
That's right.
victim of a
That's right.
racist attack.
That's right. They were too. Oh my God.
And fact check on me. Thank you, JR in Philly. It was Burger King that he got taken to, not McDonald's.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
And also, just to be clear, I mean, what was fascinating about that is that she wouldn't go all the way to being anti-woke. She just sort of that ad really captures why she's going nowhere in the campaign, because she's neither fish nor fowl. And she's trying to walk some imaginary sort of like tightrope line, and nobody believes it anymore. And that's it. And it's over. And she's just got to wait and see if she will, snag a VP slot. That's basically
what she's
it is.
running for.
But it's also, I don't know, like what does she bring to the ticket in terms of some type of like, her campaigning has been limited over the past 4 years. She hasn't been in the news much.
They're terrified of losing the suburban voter to Biden, and that's exactly who she's running to be.
She might be able to
bring back the female suburban voter.
And you know what happens when you kick with those heels?
Yeah.
If you kick backwards.
It's hard to balance after you land the kick.
And you've also got to kick backwards.
Why are you?
Because the heels would actually, it would be very, very hard to land with the heel in the kick.
I think the most effective way to stomp on people with your heels is to go stomp, right?
Yes, that's my point.
Down, not kicking back. She's kicking down.
As long as they're on the floor, those heels really hurt.
Maybe we should make cops wear heels.
They do have don't they have hard stuff on their boots sometimes, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's like a high heel.
All right.
Next time.
Couple words from our sponsors today. Oh, this has been a long time for this one. It's Emma's favorite.
Oh, great.
I just saw a thing. Sarah Silverman is hosting what's that show? The Daily Show, and I saw a promo for it where she was talking about a bidet. It's happening, folks.
Wow.
Yep. She's had a bidet for a long time, but she has like a super, pricey one. But you can get a bidet in your own home, folks. We're getting to Valentine's Day today. Don't let your trail of roses end in a dirty butt. They write stuff on this thing.
That's disgusting.
No, this Valentine's Day wash with Hello Tushy Bidet. You're not going to be able to get it in time. But if you have one, you can use it. It gives you a 2 times better clean than wiping with toilet paper. Of course, it makes total sense, folks. I mean, look, there's a very practical explanation for this. Aside from the fact that once you go bidet, you don't go back, as it were. You get dirt on your hands. You don't just wipe it with a dry towel. No. Stop spreading your business around your bum with toilet paper. Start washing with Hello Tushy Bidets. The Hello Tushy Bidet washes your bum with a fresh water for a way better clean than toilet paper. You simply spray, you pat dry. You save, 80% of your toilet paper, 90%. And you never run into, I started during COVID and have never looked back. It's my own little pun. It attaches to your existing toilet. Super easy. There's no electrician or plumber needed. The Hello Tushy Bidet cuts down on your toilet paper use. Like I say, it saves paper waste. In 2023, join the millions of happy Hello Tushy customers that take care of their business the cleaner way. Have a great and confident Valentine's Day with a clean bum. Visit hellotushy.com/majority. Get 10% off plus free shipping right now. That's hellotushy.com/majority. 10% off. Super easy to attach to your toilet. All you need to do is know how to change a toilet seat. And that's basically it. Check that out. Also, as you know, Aura's been a sponsor with us for a while. They have, they really help with some of my anxiety about my identity being stolen from. Like, I've always been very uptight about this. I'm uptight about a lot of things, but this is one of the things I've been uptight about. And every day you hear about another data leak. Well, Aura is our sponsor today, and it is an easy-use app that allows you to stay safe online easily. First off, it protects you from scammers and hackers. It scans the dark web for your email, for passwords, for your social security number. This is where these things are traded or sold in big files, and it alerts you if it finds anything fast. In fact, when you put your email address into Aura, when you first sign up, or even during your free trial, it will kick back to you and say your password and your this email and password combination has been compromised, maybe through a data leak or whatnot. You go in, you know what to change, et cetera, et cetera. Also, for me, I found out a bunch of things I had forgotten I had signed up for. Then if Aura also sends out automatic takedown notices for those websites that put all your personal information online, reduces robocalls, also provides some operational security. They give you real-time, Aura gives you real-time alerts on any type of suspicious credit inquiries or anything like that. When I was opening a bank account for Mila, it let me know that somebody had opened a bank account with my deets. Fortunately, it was me, but you don't want anybody take out a credit card in your name or anything like that. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They protect your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, so the bad guys can't break in. The Aura app also allows you to manage the way their kids use their devices, which is extremely helpful. So that you're not the bad guy. You just like, it's because you're under the age of 14. You just keep changing it. Right. That's the way I do it. They also have Password Manager, let you store and access your online passwords. And you might have an app that allows you to do one of these things, but you don't need to get 7 apps. Aura will do it all for you. You're going to be shocked at how much of your private information Aura finds exposed over the 2 weeks free that you have by going to aura.com/majority to start your free trial. It is also linked in the podcast and YouTube descriptions, as are all of our ads today. And a reminder, you get the free show free of commercials by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. All right, let's get into what's going on in Ohio. I mean, this has been just such a massive failure. And let me just start with this. I think that, it is extremely difficult to know at this juncture just how, I don't want to say serious this is, because for some people it's going to be incredibly, and I think deadly serious. But how widespread, how long-term the implications of something like this are. And part of the reason why it's so hard to know this is because of, or is, I think, illustrative of a massive failure that we have in this country on a number of fronts. We've talked in the past about the basic fundamental problem of freight train safety in this country, and it came up during that fight, the union fight for the freight trains. There's like 5 or 6 companies in this country that run the rail freight. They have all gone to a model of doing business which basically allows them to have virtually skeleton crews. They make these trains 2 miles long. Mm-hmm. They've tried to develop a system where they have just as few members on this crew as possible. They punish them for taking sick days by basically providing a demerit system where they can get fired after doing it. They are cutting corners, and this is a classic case of them privatizing the profits and externalizing the costs to our society. They put it on the workers in terms of overworking them and making it impossible for them to go and take a sick day or help a family member who's sick. Then they externalize this risk to these towns and cities and the entire country that they ride their trains through, which is all over the country.
Yeah, and it was an active choice. They lobbied the Trump administration to get rid of a more updated braking system, one that would be done by electrical signal as opposed to a more old-fashioned one where it's essentially pumping air through a pipe. And we don't know if that's directly what happened in this instance, but they were actively trying to make these systems less safe to cut costs on braking systems.
I mean, from what we've read at this point, it's pretty clear that braking system would have prevented this.
I didn't want to make a declaration, but it seems that way.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It seems that way. There was some report that there may have been a fire on the tracks. The brakes were pushed. the way these brakes work, it caused basically a derailment, and then it gets like even worse. Again, this is all about externalizing the costs and privatizing the profits. These are these freight train companies have made billions and billions and billions of dollars of profit over the past just couple of years. And it is the way they do that is basically by saying to society, you assume the risk. We don't assume the risk. And they have it worked in. They're going to get lawsuits. They're going to have to pay out. That's all part of doing business. That is like, for them, that's a line item. Like, we're going to rent this office and, we have a water delivery that comes every 3 months or whatever it is. That's just a cost that is in their budget.
Yep. And through last year, the profit was up 9%, $3.27 billion in the year. And they're also one of the donors to the Cop City in Atlanta.
There you go. And wonder why they would want that. And there's been a failure just across the board here. There's been a failure from the Biden administration. They could have interceded in this fight. I don't know if it would have made a difference, on this particular instance, but this is not the first one that this same company had. They had one in, what was it, Graniteville? What was it? Where was that?
Was that the Wyoming one? Or that was a different train derailment that could have been stopped by the electronic monitor?
There was another Norfolk Southern one. I think it was like maybe, I don't know, the past 10, 15 years, where 9 people died.
Yeah.
Similar type of dynamic here. And this won't be the last one.
Honestly, Buttigieg should have reinstated that rule that the Trump administration repealed due to the lobbying efforts from these industries immediately when he came as
in terms of braking.
Yeah, because that was in place under Obama. Trump repealed it.
So let's just start with it. So there's a failure in terms of what the president could have done to sort of force these companies to hire more people, because the reason why they wanted to discourage. The reason why the companies like Norfolk Southern wants to discourage people, their workers, from taking a day off when they're sick, or taking a day off when their kid's sick, or when their parent needs to go see a doctor, whatever it is because they don't want to have any type of redundancy with their employees. Because their whole system is designed. We're going to make a 2-mile-long train. And we need less people working on that train. You need the the guy at the front, the guy at the end, and the guy in the middle, and that's it.
Efficiency speak.
And the failure of the Biden administration to weigh in on that, basically forcing them to hire more people, make it safer for these workers. The failure of our transportation secretary to impose any safety requirements on these rail trains. And then, the failures that we have in terms of like their reporting. There was a report yesterday, I think it was. David Dane highlighted this in a thread about this. They're doing soil samples yesterday. Well, why are they telling people to come back before they take samples?
Yep.
Why are they telling people come back? We'll check out if you have a concern, we'll go into your basement and check out and see if there's there's a problem in your house. Well, why are they telling people to come back before they've done any of this testing? Here's a statement by J.D. Vance. This is another example of it. And part of it is because, look, DeWine could have asked the president to declare a state of emergency because that's the only way that FEMA can come in. That's the only way. The president cannot do this unilaterally. They need to respond to a request that comes from the state. Now, ask yourself, why would these politicians be hesitant to call for to declare a state of emergency? Because it indicates that there's a problem. and you get more people digging around. That means that there's going to be more payouts, and it means they got to do more work. And they're basically, you got these freight train going through their states. You know how much money the lobbyists are paying them. Here's J.D. Vance putting out a statement, and this is sort of like shocking to me, just even as like a political question. On February 13th, the derailment happened 10 days ago. No, yeah, well, 11 days ago
new
now.
senator from the state.
Like every Ohioan, I'm horrified by the train crash, et cetera, et cetera. 1 week ago, local and state officials determined that to avoid catastrophic explosion, a controlled release of vinyl chloride would take place. It is unclear to me what the circumstances are of and by controlled release, he's talking about this controlled burning. And it is unclear to me as to like how much of this was they had to burn some off to avoid an explosion, or they could have transferred it to other tanks and gotten rid of this stuff in a more controlled fashion, but that would have slowed things down dramatically. We still don't know on that. We're seeing like contradictory reports about this, but Vance can clearly wants to say, like, and he says, this release is the source of the frightening plumes of black smoke that have made their way around social media. While those plumes of smoke are gone now, many questions remain.
I mean, the controlled release is the effort to clean up what had already spilled. The train had already crashed, and he's not really even emphasizing the initial crashing of the chemicals, just the cleanup effort.
Well,
to say, don't be alarmed by the cloud of smoke. But what about the chemicals that spilled into the soil before that?
Or were burning prior to that?
Due to the crash.
Is the air and water safe for residents? So far, we've been told that air, I mean, understand now, like he's positioning himself as also a victim, right? He is the senator from the state. If he picks up the phone and calls anybody, they're going to jump. It's really just a question of how high.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the governor is going to be in charge of this stuff, but he's making it like he is like also just sort of just like,
He's a passive observer. Right? It's not up to me.
I'm just the guy who, owns the 5 and dime down the road. So far, we've been told that air and drinking water tests performed by the state and federal environmental protection agencies, the Ohio National Guard, and Norfolk Southern
good. We trust them.
Are you ready for this? Have been encouraging. That's encouraging, isn't it?
I feel encouraged.
Where can I bring my kid to check this out? If it's encouraging, gosh, I certainly wouldn't mind bringing my kid down there and checking it all out.
Thankfully, the corporation that's responsible for this is encouraging us now.
Yeah,
it's encouraging.
We can make vinyl chloride angels in the waste.
Encouraging of what?
Well, now the train lines are cleared, so goods can be transferred. That's what's encouraging. Capitalism turns on.
I mean, that is like that. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
If you find yourself saying like, the results are leaning towards maybe not being so deadly after all. Folks sitting in your homes.
Whose cat just died.
We continue to monitor environmental reports from multiple agencies about the quality of air and water in the region. Why is that? Aren't you encouraged enough to say like, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make here is that people should not be back in their homes. But let's get to the section where J.D. Vance says how he is working or how he thinks that somebody should be working on providing things like lodging, financial support, maybe some measures to say that we're going to put a moratorium on evictions. We're going to put a moratorium on firing. We're going to put all sorts of everybody freeze, essentially. So the bottom line is we can make sure that the residents of this town and nearby are safe. And we'll get to that part where he outlines the things that he's doing to make sure that that happens. And he goes on to say, I've heard alarming anecdotes about contaminated waterways and effects on the wildlife. I encourage anyone with credible reports of environmental harms to contact my office. It's not clear what he's going to do at that point, but in the meantime, will continue to engage with the relevant agencies and monitor the situation in the region. What are the needs with the people on the ground? Well, I've been in constant contact with local officials, residents, and governors since the accident took place. He's about to get into all the things that they're going to do for the population there. The local fire department has borne the brunt of this catastrophe. They need resources from FEMA to decontaminate equipment and ensure they continue to operate. FEMA cannot do anything until the state requests it. These firefighters deserve our gratitude for their heroism. They also deserve equipment for their needs. My office will continue to work with FEMA to ensure these firefighters get what they need. FEMA needs to be asked by the state to come in. Local officials have also consistently encouraged me to ensure appropriate environmental testing continues. So he's going to be making sure that they continue to test. As he said in paragraph 2, multiple agencies are testing the continue to test. So he's going to continue the continuing of the tests. I am focused on that as well. My office will continue to engage with people on the ground and deal with issues as they arise, because they've resolved the issues that have already arisen, apparently. Then he moves on to, why did this happen? Well, we will deal with that after the cleanup is done. Aside from this incident, there's a troubling trend of catastrophic infrastructure problems in our country and more than a few reports of sabotage. Okay. My office will be investigating these concerns in the weeks to come. You know, that's weird, because if there had been a troubling trend, one would have expected that you would continue to investigate as opposed to starting to investigate.
Yeah. And FEMA might actually do some investigation as opposed to it all being, essentially in-house in the Republican-led state with a Republican governor and done by the corporation that committed this.
He is also dedicated to ensuring, and this is the part where he's going to come and help, it's coming up, where he's going to help the people there to deal with this, that the relevant authorities do not use tests conducted as a permission slip to pack up and go home. This is a complex environmental disaster with impacts that may be difficult to assess in the short term. So in other words, we don't really know what the implications are. Long-term study will be imperative, as will long-term commitment to remediation by Norfolk Southern for the property damage, the wildlife disrupted, and the community scarred by this accident. And then, I don't see the part where he says they're going to do anything for the people there in terms of making them not stay there while everybody tries to figure out what the implications of this are going to be.
Put them up somewhere.
In fact, my understanding is that Norfolk Southern is offering like $1,000 to people. Now you have to give the W-9, and supposedly, this will not inhibit your ability to collect compensation later. But if J.D. Vance wanted the people of that community to be aware that you can leave, and if you stay at a motel an hour away, hotel an hour away, you'll be compensated for that. If he wanted to make them aware of that, he would have. Mm-hmm. The whole point is, why make Norfolk pay as long as they can say they're paying and nobody takes them up on the offer? Save a couple of bucks.
Mm-hmm. And if people get cancer or diseases down the line, we'll deal with that on the back end. But for now, we'll just kind of bank on our lawyers doing a good job of delegitimizing those people 5-10 years down the line.
It is fascinating to me on how much they're going to try and sort of make this just go away. And they tried to do it from the beginning. Here is J.D. Vance on Tucker Carlson's program, realizing 10 days after the fact, like, oh, this is probably something I should worry about. I forgot I'm from Ohio.
The tragedy in Palestine in your state kind of points up that something is kind of wrong with the fundamentals. I mean, if there are hundreds of train derailments, like, who's paying attention to this stuff and trying to prevent it?
Well, Tucker, we've had hundreds of train derailments after we spent over $1 trillion on infrastructure in this country. So the fact that this isn't getting obviously better is a major indictment of the people spending the money and what they're spending the money on. Now, we know if you listen to Secretary Buttigieg today, that they are focused more on whether we have too many white men in construction jobs than he is on the fundamentals of his job, which is ensuring we have a viable transportation infrastructure in this country. And unfortunately, my constituents in East Palestine have been some of the main victims of the fact that we have failing infrastructure in our country, again, after spending tons of money in an effort to actually fix it. So the problem we have, Tucker, is that we are ruled by unserious people who are worried about fake problems instead of the real fact that our country is falling apart in some of the most important ways. You mentioned the Environmental Protection Agency. Of course, it says it right there. It should be focused on clean air, clean water. It's the thing that I'm most focused on for the people of East Palestine, but so often they're focused on environmental racism and other ridiculous things instead of fixing the problem that they are established to fix.
You got elected to the Senate in part because you said, look, the people that I grew up with, in your case, literally that you grew up with and are related to, are dying of drugs, and no one in Washington seems to care. This seems a corollary to that. They talk a lot about the environment and environmental racism, but this seems like an actual environmental disaster. I don't detect any urgency from the EPA or from Washington at all. Is it because these are not their voters?
I think that's a big part of it. I think that the entire
Pause it. Let me just remind you at this point, FEMA cannot go in until they are asked by the local politicians, by the governor of Ohio. Period. End of story. I mean, I don't. We'll take this whole thing in a moment because I don't think this is actually terribly good for them. I don't think this is going to work in the way they think it's going to work. But continue.
Of drugs, and no one in Washington seems to care. This seems a corollary to that. They talk a lot about the environment and environmental racism, but this seems like an actual environmental disaster. I don't detect any urgency from the EPA or from Washington at all. Is it because these are not their voters?
I think that's a big part of it. I think that the entire country, the media complex, the leaders of this country have decided to disregard the people of East Palestine. If you look at the way that this story has been covered, if it's been covered at all, it's about how, you know, there are poor people in East Palestine who have been victimized by this disaster. Well, of course, that's true. But you want journalists asking tough questions about what's going on. You want to know, for example, what level of vinyl chloride is actually acceptable in the water. I've been trying to get an answer to that question for days. I haven't been able to get an answer to it. Why is vinyl chloride showing up in the Ohio River in West Virginia and Cincinnati, hundreds of miles away from where this accident took place? There are a lot of questions, and we don't, unfortunately, have a media that's actually interested in asking those questions and answering them.
It's just crazy. All these people are like defacing paintings because they care about the earth. If you care about the earth, clean air and water is the first step. I mean, it's like... Anyway, I appreciate if you can't get an answer as a sitting U.S. Senator from the state affected, that just tells you everything right there. Thank you.
Yeah. You know what tells you everything
Amen.
is that he actually wasn't asking any questions and that he did not bring any attention to this until 10 days after the disaster.
The amazing thing is, though, is that the way they're trying to shove like the woke agenda, that is, I mean, I'm getting the sense that's going to be the next 2 years, is that the wokeness is getting in the way of proper regulation for industry. And my response to that is, let's see if we can do both, which I know we can, right? I mean, this is why I don't think this is going to be terribly effective for them. Because this is going to increase pressure on Buttigieg and on others to increase regulation.
Well, Buttigieg is messed up, right? I mean, he did not speak out against this, about this soon enough. And he did travel to, what was it, Texas the other day. And
he's a loser.
I mean, he doesn't, the fact that he thinks that this is going to be a platform for his presidential run, I think, is laughable.
It
given
should be a platform
how,
for Biden to fire a guy. And get
yeah, I mean, and let alone what's happened with air travel over recent years, which people are pissed off about. But that's because someone like Buttigieg is actually much more sympathetic to a J.D. Vance point of view than would be advertised. He comes from a consulting McKinsey background. They're all about the notions of efficiency and cutting corners as a way to make corporate profits go up and up. So that's why he didn't reinstate the safety regulations from the Obama era. But they're not. But Tucker Carlson and the right is completely incapable of having that conversation.
Of course not.
So they're going to make it about wokeness and not. Did you know Buttigieg is gay?
I mean, I'd be willing to bet. I wouldn't bet the house on it, but I'd be willing to bet that many of those efficiency measures that these freight companies employ were developed by McKinsey consultants.
100%.
Honestly, I think I would find it surprising if they were not involved in some of those so-called efficiencies. But the problem they have is they can't complain about this. And, like, I know there are right-wingers who are out there, sort of like saying this is, Chernobyl, essentially. And I don't think it is. I think it is indicative of a real problem where we have corporations offloading the risk to society, and we should be clamping down on the regulations here.
Yeah.
And the EPA should up their regulations, and you should not be able to drive a train through a town like that with those chemicals under these conditions. Like, you need to have better safety mechanisms. You need to have more staffing. There is no reason why the federal government cannot say that the ratio of personnel to cars containing dangerous chemicals, and you can develop a schedule of dangerous chemicals. I'm sure it already exists in some way. We do it with drugs. We could say this is a category 5, car. And if you have 3 category cars, you need X number of personnel. I mean, we should be able to do all of this. And it's going to come at the expense of one party. And that is the freight train shareholders and C-suite. And it is time to basically say, like, these things that are crucial to the United States. Like, I get it. Maybe there was some concern about, inflation. That's why we can't require them to put things on there. If these things are deemed to be so important to the nation in terms of the health of the economy, or so possibly risky to the nation in terms of what kind of risk they present, these things should be either nationalized or regulated like a common carrier.
Yeah.
The logic is right there. And the opportunity should be taken, because they can try and argue that it's wokeness that is preventing this type of regulation from being applied to these things. But that is going to resonate with a very narrow slice of the population. It's not insignificant, but maybe 35% of the people out there are going to be like, it's true, we're not getting protected from the corporations because of wokeness. Well, this is an opportunity for this administration to step in and say, like, we're going to protect you from the corporations, despite the fact that we're also, not in favor of racism.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the wokeness is getting in the way. Like, it's actually anti-wokeness being used as a cudgel or as an obscurant for the real problem. And the border opioid issue is a perfect one, that these two crocodiles trying to, like, fake cry. acting like they care at all about that. I don't believe JD Vance gives a shit about anybody in his life that died from opioids, because if he did, he would know that the vast majority of these things are coming through ports of entry, not through mules in the desert. And so when you actually focus on the sort of like coyotes and all that stuff, you're obscuring the real issue in a way that I find extremely suspicious, and probably covers for those agencies like Border Patrol that are allowing some of this stuff through. So like, I don't care. I don't think like all these guys pretending like they care about this stuff is just really difficult to stomach.
I mean, did you want to do the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, or we can wait on that?
Yeah, no, let's.
I just, for me, this is so instructive, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the top fundraisers in the Republican Party. She's positioned herself as somebody who's gonna get small donations, be closer to kind of the base than, say, even a senator like J.D. Vance, this is the only thing that they have in response. So she starts off this thread on what happened in East Palestine like this. The devastating consequences from the toxic train derailment and explosion in East Palestine, Ohio, are only beginning. Deadly chemicals are spreading far and wide through the air, groundwater, and rivers, blah, blah, blah. I don't think blame can be placed on one person or nefarious cause. I think this is a tragedy that happened because we are a crumbling nation with many causes as to why we're crumbling. So she keeps going on. It goes longer and down the thread. But here's the key part, I think. No.
I think this is a good opportunity for Biden to come back out and do a second bite at the apple of the infrastructure bill.
Yeah. Shoot, I lost the train of thought. But what's happening in East Palestine is probably just the beginning of more tragic events that are likely to happen to us in our crumbling nation. In the rail industry, they have been suffering from labor shortages that were exacerbated by COVID shutdowns, especially the freight industry, which is a critical piece of our supply chain that delivers foods, goods, chemicals, and fossil fuels in order for us all to survive. With labor shortages, cutting the number of rail workers on trains, it creates potentially dangerous conditions for trains and railways. The disruption in our economy, blah, blah, blah.
Well, just to be clear.
Yeah. She's blaming labor is what she ends up doing here. Hold on.
Well, but first off, the labor shortage, there are no labor shortages.
Yes.
It's they refuse to hire more people. We just saw this.
Yes.
We just saw this. This is what the threatened strike was about.
Yep.
The threatened strike was about hire more people so that we can take sick days without threat of being fired.
And then, so instead of making that point, this is what the populist right offers. Here we go. If we can put this up. Okay. Not only do we have a shortage of people, we have a shortage of good values. And hard work is one of the most important good values America is losing or has lost. Think about it. How many kids do you hear say they want to be a train engineer when they grow up? I don't know. Maybe if they had sick days, they would want to be.
How many people?
Well, I know a lot of toddlers who
Yeah, choo-choo.
How many people you hear want to inherit their parents' construction business and have affairs at CrossFit all day?
Yeah, right.
That doesn't sound so bad.
That's her life. There we go. I mean, I just that she goes on and on, but I wanted to highlight that just because it's this long thread where she acknowledges the problem, the environmental disaster. It's very similar to what J.D. Vance said there. And all it comes down to is blaming the values of workers as opposed to corporate power. And that is right-wing populism distilled. And same thing with J.D. Vance. It's really just a cultural issue with Appalachia and with people in rural Ohio. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Stop blaming others for your problems and feed into the capitalist system. That is the only thing that they offer for real problems. They'll identify it and then blame people for the problems that they face.
It's interesting. It does feel like if you read this, if you hear what J.D. Vance is talking about, there does feel like there is almost like a redux of Trump's speech, his RNC 2016 speech. You remember that, where he was talking about, it was like almost like he was describing Gotham, like a dark vision of the country. And of course, like there's this vague thing that she's arguing that it's like a lack of values is what did that train. It created this train derailment. No, what it is a simple failure of government to exert its authority over corporations and the protection of corporate profits over the safety of American citizens. Period. End of story. That's what's going on here. And there's plenty of opportunity now that the Republicans control Congress. I think they should offer up a bill to add more money to the rails, and maybe let's nationalize these rails.
Yeah.
Let's beef up the EPA. Let's beef up enforcement by the Transportation Department. Let's increase regulations. Let's do this.
Come on, Democrats.
They want
that's a super depressing thing. Is like we get to this point and it's up to the Democrats to call their bluff, and they just don't have the personnel to do it.
No, I agree with that. Although I wanted to get into that story about that Greg Sargent wrote about Maxwell Frost, and also we're seeing a little bit with Biden. Maybe we'll talk about that in the fun half in terms of Social Security, because it's driving them crazy. But there is a huge opportunity here, and if Buttigieg both had the adeptness, and I also think it's impossible for him, though. I mean, I think like there's just too much of an opportunity here for someone who was like, you know, even like a young Biden who was just a total cipher, right? Would see this as a political opportunity. If Buttigieg wasn't so immersed, and I think he's just like, you know,
no, he's bad at politics. Well, Buttigieg is bad at politics, and he's so in this corporate world, he has no sense of what Biden's a good politician. And I mean, to a degree, right? Like he understands what regular people, how they're going to respond.
Pete's a neoliberal plant.
Yeah, exactly. A ghoul like him has no sense.
Well, it's amazing because, you know, people have suggested that he's, you know, Mayo Pete. The idea was that he's really sort of bland and there's nothing that he believes in. And I think he was considered a cipher, and a cipher would see this as an opportunity. If you're gonna run for president, you take hold of this opportunity and say, we have a problem with our transportation, because people can't stand flying with good reason. Airlines are just, it's been a crap show. And people don't have any real attachment to the freight train business other than making sure that it doesn't kill them or destroy their city or whatnot. I mean, there's a big opportunity here. And the fact that he's not out ahead of this indicates to me that he can't eat. He is so steeped in that, in a culture where corporations must be protected in their interests, uber alles, that he can't even be self-serving about it. It really is fascinating. All right, we got to take a break, head into the fun half. Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You're going to become a member by going to jointhemajority.report.com. Do you see that?
Yeah, good job.
I said you're going to.
Oh.
And when you do, you're going to help the show survive and thrive. Jointhemajority.report.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, you get 10% off. Check out our merch. We got some new stuff in there. I don't know how many more. Do we have any more Emma Majority shirts?
M-Majority shirts. Shop.majorityreportradio.com. Limited edition, still available.
Check it out, folks. Go.
And those hoodies are really cool, especially the charcoal and red ones. I'm into that.
Check it out. What's happening on... Well, it was just yesterday.
Yeah, well, we did a Super Bowl breakdown. I know people are probably sick of gushing about Mahomes, but we did a good amount of that on the show. And we dove into some of the angles from the Super Bowl, including who paid for those weird Jesus ads and where does that money come from? Spoiler alert, part of the same group that helped fund the Hobby Lobby case and the recent case that helped overturn Roe v. Wade. as well as the continued whitewashing of Pat Tillman by the NFL and the military. Makes sense because Fox was the in charge of the broadcast for that game. So youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt Leck Media update.
Yep, on Left Reckoning tonight, Robert Bazanko on Vietnam, talking to David, and we'll also be talking about this train derailment, as well as critical action. I just tweeted from the Majority Report, or retweeted the Left Reckoning post, critical action in Austin on police oversight. David's got a story with two DSA members about some police shenanigans going on in Austin that people need to show up at City Council to demand Austin voters decide the future of policing in Austin. So check that out tonight, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, quick break. Fun half, 646-257-3920. See you there.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflakes says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males
psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what?
What?
Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. It is the fun half, folks. We'll be taking your IMs via our app at majorityapp.com. We will take phone calls in a bit. I don't want people on for 90 minutes when I'm not going to, get to everybody. I don't like that. Let's just read a couple IMs first, and then we'll get back to Gerald Horn, the greatest, does a weekly podcast. KPFK. Oh, on KPFK. Sam Tight Pants. Nikki Haley's opening ad is proof positive. She has no idea what her specific pitch is for president, she won't make it to her home state of South Carolina. Artie, you could have made an effort, Sam, and combed your hair beforehand. Jeff, Sam, do you consider yourself to be more of a W Riz or an L Riz kind of guy?
I don't know what the hell this means.
All right, good. I was embarrassed to not know what that means, but now, do you know what that means?
Riz is like having game with a woman.
So what's a W or an L?
I didn't realize you could conjugate Riz like this, but
Sanat would even, this is about Kai Sanat, a Twitch streamer. Sanat would give advice to people on Twitch about how to have Riz and came up with further terms to explain it, such as W Riz, a win, and L Riz, a loss. But when the term Riz blew up on TikTok, Sanat stopped using the word, so we're behind by about
So it means like
8 months, it looks like.
Game, game with women? Okay.
You just need to get Sam to do some TikTok dances.
Yeah.
Have you done the gritty
I
yet?
still don't even know how to answer that question. But Hunter Biden, happy Taco Tuesday, Sam and Emma. All
Thank
right.
you.
Eli from New Jersey, happy Valentine's Day to all who haven't given up and moved to a rice farm away from civilization. And Jay Malman, the Moldova coup story is super important because of Transnistria, the country Russia controls. Russia originally helped Transnistria gain independence by arming thousands of Russian and Ukrainian Nazis. Lots of history there. J.D. Vance sounds like some shitty British field marshal in WW1 saying the first month of the battle of the Somme, a 5-month battle, was encouraging. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator, thanks for clarifying the info about the Valentine's Day card. I was all set to fact check you. I think there was a better Valentine's Day pitch for that Hello Tushy ad than what they came up with. I'm not going to say it, but I gonna guess I don't have to either. Okay, Worcester Ice Cats, and also Turtle Boy. I guess Turtle Boy was made. I'm not familiar with her. Catfish James. If it doesn't get enough coverage because fatalities are rare, but we average something like 1,700 derailments per year since 1990, according to BTS. Fierce Deity. Wasn't just a no-hitter, Sam. It was a perfect game. That's right. It was a perfect game pitched by Lee Richmond for the Worcester Worcesters.
Whoa.
Yep. Also, Ted Williams hit his first home run in Worcester. Yeah. At Holy Cross Field, I think. I think it was an exhibition game. Joe Snuffy. Fairly Haley. Oh, that's pretty good. Maybe. Jess from the West. Hi, all. I haven't been able to message for a few months. I've taught for 3 different public school districts this school year, and I'm most likely considering it my last. 2 of these schools were Title I, which I'm currently at. It's in the suburbs. I'm coming to a point where it seems like it doesn't matter where I work. It's whether it's a different state or another school, the education system just hates teachers. It really is a problem. Pepperoni pizza. Gotta be Nick. Montana Wolf, hey, I'm our crew on behalf of the organizing committee for Yellowstone Workers United. Can we get some sort of inspirational sound drop for obtaining over 100 signatures in an effort to unionize federal employees at Yellowstone National Park? We are educators, scientists, fee collectors, and park rangers. We only have 10 more signatures to get from our coworkers, at which point I'll message again for a shofar. So you don't want the shofar now. You want something en route to a shofar. Speaking of shofar, Bighorn Rams here, and we see nearly every day on the way to the park. Left is best. You get that, but I'll also give you that.
Charge.
Oh, that's great. Hey, Montana Wolf, send us an email, and if you want to come on at any point, if it would be helpful for you to come on to reach other workers at other places, please do so. Send us an email, and we'll book you. But keep us updated. That's great. I read a great story about, I think it was workers in Yellowstone. I'm not sure. District Jabroni. Hi, I'm James O'Keefe, and I'm going to present this investigative report exposing the Biden administration to the tune of I Dreamed a Dream from Les Mis. Oh, NBBB. Sam throwing out all these Worcester facts to cover up from the fact that he was born in New York.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Whoa. Overcompensating.
Yeah, a little bit.
Nationalism is always the strongest at the periphery.
Yep. Yep. It's true.
That's Stalin's from Georgia.
That's That's what happens. I've got to make up for it. First 18 months of my life was spent in New York City.
I still think it's interesting that we
That's
were
where I
born
get
at
my
the same
smug,
hospital.
That's how I get my smug attitude.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Brought that up to Worcester. Combined it with a real disdain for people trying to enter into a rotary. 2 kids in a trench coat. Do you think Trump will just call Nikki Haley her birth name Nimrata?
Oh, yeah.
Nimrata changed her name to Nikki. What's her next gender?
Nimrod.
She identifies as Nimrod. She identifies as Nikki, but she's really Nimrod.
Why is it she changed her name to Nimrata? You know what's amazing? Like, why do you think that she did do that?
Of course. What do you mean?
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Why do you think she did that? Like, when did she do that? Was it as a child? I bet it was.
Are you asking it rhetorically?
Well, I mean, it's somewhat rhetorical, but
I don't know. Like,
it's because she was dealing with being in South Carolina, where apparently racism wasn't an issue at all.
I know. I mean, all those, like, the Tucker Carlson, Sandy Cortez stuff, they're not going to apply to Nikki, or maybe it will be applied to Nikki Haley, right? But just, you're in different situations. You want to be white passing, I guess, right? Because there's racism.
Yeah, unbelievable. Joe from Wisco. Hey, Sam, Destiny had some of the writers from the Twitter files on his show yesterday. He got them to admit they didn't reach out to anyone for comment. He tried to ask them if the CEO gave them info about climate change, would they take it at face value and question their journalistic integrity? Oh, good for him. Trek left. I look forward to Haley commenting on Modi in India next. Sam, I took your recommendation and watched Maron's new special. It indeed had some good stuff. And his selfie joke slayed me. Andruk, Icky Nikki, very low energy.
So just to update on the name, Nikki is actually her actual middle name. It is Punjabi, but there's she didn't go by Nimrata.
But it kind of, but stands to reason. Like, she chose the more
Assimilation.
anglicized,
Yes.
middle name.
I mean, I don't.
Makes sense.
I don't in any way fault her for doing that, but to pretend that there was
Racism
that was
doesn't
just
exist.
simply like, I just felt,
Just aesthetic.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Ryan, the smiley face wasn't Forrest Gump. I don't know what that means. AM Quickie fan. First thing in the morning news is for winners. Thanks, team. Emma's Bookie. This campaign ad is a great distillation of the conservative mantra. Don't complain or try to improve life in America because Iran, China, Venezuela have it worse than you.
I just like how it starts off with like, oh yeah, here's some racist infrastructure. And then America's not racist. What are you talking about? Like,
and my name's
how
Nikki,
does it
and I'm
make
in
sense?
between all of this, right?
I mean, it is. She's doing the job that they want her to do. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, that is exactly what that is the role that she knows she has to play.
Yeah. And they can't
assure the white people that they're fine.
They can't perceive of infrastructure or any structure really as racist. They want it naturalized. They actually mock you. Tucker Carlson was just mocking people for saying that there's environmental racism, just like what we played 20 minutes ago.
Actual Sam from Portland. I have to wonder how Sam feels about his former lover, Sarah Silverman, taking over The Daily Show. Happy Valentine's Day. Why don't she's taking it over? She's substituting, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's filling in for
They're doing a bunch of guest hosts. Like they had Leslie Jones do it a few weeks ago too, right?
Yeah,
Probably have Sam do it, I would think.
I'm happy for her. If it's fun.
Yeah, it's like Leslie Jones, D.L. Hughley, Wanda Sykes, now Sarah.
That's awesome.
JR in Philly, the maximum contaminant limit, MCL, of vinyl chloride in drinking water is 0.002 milligrams per liter. Wow, I wonder how you were able to find that out, but the senator from Ohio wasn't able to find that out. That's weird. Maybe we should print that somewhere. Chicago letter carrier. I hear it tends to hurt when someone kicks you with a steel-toed boot as well. All right, Pepino. Some potentially promising news related to green energy alternatives. The vessel Viking Energy will be the first supply ship in the world to be installed with ammonia fuel cell tech in 2024 and have the ability to travel long distances with zero emissions. Ride on Yellow River boat. let's get to. I want to just this piece that Greg Sargent wrote in the Washington Post as we get through. And I have to say, I thought by now we're midway through February. It's still a little bit early. Maybe they're delaying it a little bit because they want to get into it, but so far, like the Republican hearings about Hunter Biden's laptop and Twitter being suppressive and this and that, they don't seem to be resonating. I'm sure that they're on 24/7 on Fox, but they don't seem to be dictating the media narrative.
No.
Right now, the media narrative, it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, is the Republicans going around saying Joe Biden's lying about Social Security. Like, we don't want to cut it, they say hesitantly, and then add qualifiers. But I think part of the reason why there's a two-step thing going on here. Part of the reason why it's not gaining traction in the House, I think, is because of people like AOC, who gets up there and within like one 90-second TikTok video or Instagram video completely blows apart their entire sort of like narrative. Completely blows it apart and makes it impossible for any sort of like beltway media type to repeat it without immediately being debunked. And Sargent writes about Maxwell Frost. He's the, I guess he's the first Gen Z member of Congress.
Mhm.
What does that mean? He's like the first one in like your age, like mid-20s. And he's, I don't know if is he considered a Justice Democrat?
Yes.
I think he is, right?
Definitely squad
He's definitely
adjacent.
progressive and squad adjacent, as it were. And Sargent's writing about this guy and making a point that I think, frankly, that I've been making for some time, which is one big difference between this younger generation of Democrats and the older generation of Democrats, aside from, I think, largely being more progressive generally, is that even the ones that aren't ideologically, sort of aligned with, let's say, the squad and whatnot, they understand that this is partisan politics. And the way to win, even if what you're trying to win is not necessarily the policies that I want, the way you win and beat Republicans is to simply just sort of like mock them or pull them apart. Here's a couple of clips, and all he has to do right now is basically, because they're not, I would hope that they're starting to think about like, what kind of legislation would we pass if we were in the majority? But right now they're just on committees and they're dealing with the committee work. What do we got here for what is it? Okay. Yeah. Well, play the border clip, because one of the talking points we just, we hear from the Republicans all the time is that open borders and the administration is not doing anything about the open borders, and the country's going to hell in a handbasket because of the open borders. And here is go ahead.
It's unfortunate that this hearing started off with a ton of hyperbole and posturing, saying that President Biden and his administration have created the worst border crisis in American history. That isn't about oversight. It's about stoking the fears of immigrants and those seeking asylum. And it's something I take personally as a son of a Cuban refugee. Look, for many folks around the country who might only watch far-right media or just listen to even some of the folks on this committee, I'm curious, Chief Chavez, when President Biden took office, did your agents stop enforcing the border and just allow everybody to come in, thus creating what we hear here is an open border? Did that happen when the president took office?
Sir, thank you for your question. The answer is no, sir.
Okay,
we
thank you.
continue to enforce policy and laws.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Chief Modlin, when President Biden took office, did the border just open and did y'all stop enforcing your policies?
Also, thank you for your question, sir. I can tell you this is the 5th administration I've worked for, starting with the Clinton administration, and Border Patrol agents do their job every day.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look, as y'all probably realize by now, a lot of these hearings are not really about solutions. They're about politics. And for me, I believe solutions must be rooted in facts.
I mean, I don't know why it's taken so long for a Democrat to come in and talk that way. Now maybe he gets more attention because he's younger. And
it's the oversight committee, so he has like the capacity. This is exactly what he's there to do, right?
Well, this is the interesting thing too, is that they've put. I mean, he's a freshman, a congressperson, and this committee leadership must know that there's a lot of stuff going to come out of this committee, and that is all going to be rhetorical.
Yeah, that's
right?
why they put AOC on the oversight committee when she first entered Congress. They want to harness the progressive young energy for partisan purposes. There is at least that understanding within leadership.
And this is going to be important because down the road, the Democratic caucus is moving to the left. It simply is. You know, I don't even know what happened to the Blue Dog Democrats. What happened after they all broke up because they didn't like their name and there was only like 8 of them or whatever it was. The progressive faction in the House is going to grow. And I'm talking about the legitimately progressive one, not necessarily the progressive caucus, which is, you know, more like, I don't know, the good housekeeping seal for progressives. And it really doesn't take much to get in there. But there's a core and it's growing. Frost is, one of the latest, and Summer Lee, and a couple others from Texas, and I can't remember his name.
Greg Casar.
And there's a couple others, and it's growing, and it's going to take a while. There's no doubt. But what's also important is that the only way these people are going to be able to influence policy is if the Democrats have control of the House. Obviously, you need the Senate and you need the presidency as well. But the only way they're going to be able to control policy is if they have it. And so there's 2 things that has to happen. There has to be, A, good politics in terms of ideological and in terms of issues. But also you need to understand partisanship. You need to understand how to perform politics. And that's what these younger people know how to do, it seems to me. Do we have a second clip of him?
There's the clip about him talking about the Chrissy Teigen tweet. It's slightly stitched up because his team edited it, but there's also one about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Oh yeah, do the Hunter Biden's laptop one.
%. Well, there you have it. There's issues of big tech. There are serious issues we need to litigate. Hunter Biden's laptop is not one of them. And like many of my colleagues have said, we need to talk about these issues, how January 6th maybe could have been prevented if Twitter had taken action due to the hateful speech, and how we have foreign interference in our elections. Why are folks on this committee so obsessed with Twitter's editorial decision on Hunter Biden's laptop? Would they hold the same hearings of the editorial decisions of Fox News and Newsmax? Free speech is about the government limiting speech around about the public.
The only thing that's interesting to me about that too, I mean, in addition to him like pushing back on that thing, is that Twitter is supposedly not a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at one point, there's going to have to be a reckoning.
That's Section 230.
That's Section 230. And there's going to, and the reason why Twitter and these other non-publishers, just platforms, police themselves is because they don't want the liability that is involved with Section 230. Because again, this is, I mean, maybe not as dramatic, maybe it is, I don't know, relative to the train derailment. These companies want to socialize any costs associated with them not spending money on actual moderation. And those costs may come in the form of, child trafficking or spreading hate or, whatever it is. But they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to pay for moderation. And they also, and the way they avoid that by having government come after them is to do their own moderation. In the same way that, companies advertise or don't advertise on things because they don't want to be associated with it because it's bad for their business. It's not censorship when, whatever it is, company X doesn't want to be on this show because we say that there should be a wealth tax. It's not censorship. It's just they don't want to be associated with it. Meantime, you've got these younger Democrats who are, understand partisanship. And I think that's going to be important going forward. And it's somewhat encouraging. Joe Biden's out there like going around now, almost like on a campaign tour. Presumably he'll need to sort of take a little bit of a rest and then do it again, like, 3 or 4 months. But he's going out there and he's taking advantage of that moment in the State of the Union, which apparently, in terms of polling, for whatever it's worth, he did quite well.
I mean,
like significantly, like somewhere, in terms of like the people's skepticism towards him, like a 40 point jump in some moments.
I mean, just from the eye and ear test, it was great.
But he took that moment where the Republicans basically screamed out, we promised not to touch Social Security and Medicare, and is now going around and making him say it over and over again. But the problem is that everybody knows you cannot trust them when it comes to Social Security and Medicare. You simply cannot trust them in that situation. Here is the latest example of this. They're out there trying to claim that they're trying to claim that they're not in support of cutting Social Security. We know Rick Scott is out there saying we should have these laws reauthorized, which of course makes Social Security easier to cut. And here is Senator Ron Johnson, honestly one of the stupidest people probably to hold office, maybe in the history of the country.
Yeah.
And here he is talking about Social Security. And
in August, he made a suggestion that Social Security and Medicare should be moved into discretionary spending. So Ron Johnson himself has been speaking about and flirting with publicly for a while.
Why else would
Social
you want
Security and Medicare? Why would you move it to discretionary spending if you don't want it cut?
Why would you want to give people the discretion to cut it? That's what it is. Because they already have the discretion to expand it. Why would you want to give people the discretion to cut it if you weren't interested in cutting it? There's no reason. And then listen to how he characterizes Social Security. This is the dead giveaway.
Adults.
We're talking with Senator Ron Johnson, of course. One of the few bipartisan applause lines of Tuesday night was related to the notion that both sides should agree not to touch Social Security and Medicare. I get the reflexive political applause to that idea, but these entitlement programs do need reforms, and they don't have to be cuts, but they need reforms, and we do need serious adults in Washington, D.C. who are willing to take on the challenge and do the work instead of engaging in this political arson against each side when it's even mentioned. Would you agree with that?
No.
Yes, that's why what I've talked about, from the first time around in 2010, I just laid out the reality of Social Security. It's a legal Ponzi scheme. It is. I mean, it's a pay-as-you-go system.
All right, let's be clear about something. One, what reform are we talking about if not cuts? And if the reform is, there's one reform. There's one reform that does not involve cuts, and that is you lift the Social Security cap. The cap on what income Social Security payroll taxes are applied to. And then I guess you could also have one other reform, which is let's also do this for capital gains.
Boom.
There's no other tweaking that doesn't involve cuts. You could raise the retirement age, and that is a cut. It's a cut. You could slow the cost of living increases. That is a cut. Period. End of story. And as far as it being a Ponzi scheme, it is not a Ponzi scheme, legal or otherwise. A Ponzi scheme is when you pay out investors in a fund, let's say, with new money that's coming in.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
But the problem is that at one point, you're going to run out of investors.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, you're going to run out of investors, and those nascent investors, those latest investors, they could also ask for their money out. And that's when Ponzi schemes fall apart. When you either run out of people to invest in a Ponzi scheme, or the people whose last money was in decides like, I want out. I don't like my returns, or I need my cash. I want to buy a boat or whatever it is. And the difference between that and Social Security is that, A, to argue that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, you would have to argue that there will be no more workers tomorrow or in 10 years or in 5 years or in 20 years or in 30 years, that there'll be no economy from then. And if that's the case, we have other problems aside from the fact that Social Security is not going to be there. You would have to assume that all the workers in this country are going to go away. That will not happen. The other thing you would have to assume is that some 45-year-old who said, like, I've been paying it to Social Security for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. I want my money now. But you can't do that.
Nope.
You can't get it until, I think, like the earliest you can draw is 62. You can get early Social Security, I think. So it is not a Ponzi scheme in terms of the definition of the word. There is no way to change it from anything else than a social insurance program. In fact, if you believe that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, you also have to believe that every insurance policy that anyone holds is, in fact, a Ponzi scheme. But it's not.
And why would you call it a Ponzi scheme if your reform was not to cut it?
Well, how about having this entire conversation of, everyone's being too political. We need mature adults. And he's like, yeah, that's why I call it a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, right. Without knowing the definition of the word, I guess. But so very helpful. Thank you, Ron Johnson, for saying that on Thursday of last week.
You don't want to cut the Ponzi scheme. Reform it.
Right, exactly.
This is the equivalent of George Bush going down into the basement of the Treasury and going like, here's your Social Security. It's just pieces of paper.
Yeah.
In these file cabinets, just IOUs.
It's actually a social construct.
IOUs. It's not real. There's no gold here. It's no gold or freeze-dried food. It's just pieces of paper saying IOU from the Treasury Department.
And what is money anyway?
Of course, we refer to those as Treasury bills. And don't worry, all those guys from PIMCO who own treasuries, they'll get their money. But for the rest of you, it's just an IOU. Do we have another clip of Ron Johnson sort of doubling down on this? This guy's going around. He thinks he's actually helping. He loves going on Joey Pags' show. Joey Pags.
Again, it is a legal Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
I got accused in 2010 that I called it a Ponzi scheme. I admitted it. Yes, it's a legal Ponzi scheme. It operates the same way as any other Ponzi scheme, except that this is sanctioned by the U.S. government. But it's no less irresponsible than a Ponzi scheme.
Okay, this is the problem. Again, why is a Ponzi scheme irresponsible, or why is it illegal? It is because at one point the music stops and somebody's left without a chair on a Ponzi scheme. And the music either stops because you run out of new investors to get to invest in your scheme, or the existing investors want to take their money out. And again, for this to happen, for this to be an actual Ponzi scheme, we would have to run out of workers soon. And in fact, like, you got Generation Z, is it? Or that is as big as the boomers? That's going to pump a bunch of money into Social Security. And if we raise the cap and get to where we have been traditionally in terms of like taxing, I think it's 90% of the dollars in this country, we're going to be fine. But they call it a Ponzi scheme to pretend like it's in crisis. And then they come and they complain. And then they we got to fix it.
Yeah.
And the way we fix it is we cut it. It is an insurance policy.
Not everybody has the same insurance policy that, say, Ron Johnson's kids do. Ron Johnson, who hasn't paid Wisconsin taxes in years, they have trust funds. And this is just like a micro state, federal version of people to have some sort of security in their lives, much less than the security that he has afforded to his kids, in part by not paying his fair share in taxes.
So it's great that Biden's going around and hammering this, and it's great that Ron Johnson's too stupid to realize that every time he goes out there and flaps his mouth about this, he's helping.
Was it Chuck Grassley, 90 million years old Chuck Grassley, who said that like right before the election, called Ron Johnson's comments stupid on this?
I think it was Rick Scott.
Might have been.
Was it? Or I don't know. It
But
could have
either
been
way,
one.
Rick Scott and Ron Johnson doing God's work for the Democratic Party.
Yes, much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you.
This is an unfair attack.
What do we got here? All right, let's go. Let's open up the phone line. 646-257-3920 is the number. 646-257-3920 is the number. Let's do this clip from Arkansas.
Oh, yes. Jesus.
I mean, a couple of months ago, I speculated, I predicted that because, maybe it was 3 months ago, because the Republicans failed so spectacularly at trying to use transphobia as an electoral wedge, and failed so spectacularly, particularly in Michigan, was a perfect example of this. For all intents and purposes, like a purple state. It's a little bit, it got a bluer hue than purple, but it's purplish.
It took a while to break the hold of like the state legislature specifically.
Yep. And in Michigan, Democrats really cleaned up, and I think it was probably ground zero for the amount of money that was spent specifically pushing transphobia by the Republicans. And I made the prognostication that you'd see the Republicans back off this issue. And maybe you've seen it a little bit nationally, a little bit in terms of like, what national speakers have talking about a little bit. But in terms of the states, it's as if they got supercharged by this. And of course, it's the red states too, right? Because it is very effective in the red states. And so now I don't know what we're up to.
Hundreds
though.
of anti-trans
It could be
bills
close to 300.
Yeah, trying to ban trans-affirming care for adults, for kids,
criminalize
drag
it.
shows, criminalize doctors, and they're all coming from these same extremist, evangelical, right-wing Christian think tanks that are just copy-paste into these state legislatures.
And understand, this is going to, if it hasn't already, and I'm sure it has, lead to more, particularly young people, being suicidal, depressed, killing themselves, and of course being attacked.
Yep. In the UK, trans girl Brianna Gray was murdered in a park. And in many ways, we have imported the transphobia turfness from the UK. And by the way, the ACLU says 299 anti-LGBTQ bills in the 2023 legislative session.
Here is hearings in Arkansas, the home of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the anti-woke warrior, and she is and this is put together by the Democratic Party there to give us a sense of what's going on there. This is a witness at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. Do we know her name? The witness?
No, I don't have. This is a compilation of many of the witnesses at the hearing.
And the state senator is this guy Matt McKee,
Who asked this
Republican. Here we go. He's the one asking the question.
You said that you're a trans woman.
Trans female, yes, ma'am, sir.
Do you have a penis?
That's horrible.
You're the one that brought that into the discussion. You're the one that
never
brought that
said
into
anything about genitalia.
Oh, it
Is
has
that-
everything to do with genitalia.
I don't know what my rights are right now. I'm a healthcare professional, a doctor. Please treat me as such. Next question, please.
Senator McKee, that you asked my friend if she had a penis. And I would just like to tell you that even if you have a penis, it doesn't mean that you have honor or that you're a man.
Listen, I talked to a 10-year-old girl back in the fall, and you know where she got her idea to have one of these surgeries? Off of TikTok. Because the Chinese were showing this little girl on TikTok who said, "This has changed my life."
And focus on the implications on the mental health of trans and non-binary youth. One part of this bill stipulates that a trans minor must have no other mental health concerns. This alone would make nearly all trans youth ineligible for any gender-related care.
2 of these individuals have made unsuccessful attempts at their own suicide over the course of this past month. Each one of these expressed to me that this conversation being had by our legislature and these laws that are trying to be passed by you guys is directly affecting their mental health and their concerns that the state that they were born and raised in, that they must consider having to run away with their family and seek to find other places that can help them live their lives as themselves.
Gender affirming care that these teenagers receive, or that they have been able to receive in the past, beyond that, it just lets them know that they are loved and affirmed for who they are. With this bill, it won't affect 99% of Arkansans or more, 99.9. But the people who it does affect, the message they receive from this is that the state they live in hate them. That's the message they receive from this.
I mean, it's not just a message. It's. Sorry, go on.
Right. No, the material implications of it. That was the last guy was Senator Clark Tucker. We don't have necessarily names for the other witnesses. I mean, this is what's going on around the country, and it's going to have both material implications for kids and ultimately adults too on the ground and their families, and it's also going to exacerbate the transphobia that we have in this country, and it's a real problem. There's a real attempt to obliterate these people,
and they're titillated by it. I mean, they're darkly fascinated by people's genitalia. They're obsessed with policing teenagers' genitalia. And even when they have a doctor on their panel, they can't focus on the medical information being provided to them because they're focused on her genitalia. And all human decency and courtesy just goes out the window because hatred's at the forefront. Like, I mean, asking someone sitting in a congressional hearing about their genitalia, that's what that is. Family values.
It's super twisted because you if you contemplate what's the point? Like, what was the point?
To discredit her as a woman.
Right.
But also because they're interested.
Lux says 321 bills as of 2 days ago. I mean, it is just growing exponentially.
And all they have is TikTok is making them do it.
Yeah, there were no trans people before TikTok. Did you know?
Oh my God.
China, scary. China.
I just
Maybe
heard
those balloons are making us trans.
I just heard a story of a trans person who came from the Hasidic community. Had no idea growing up that trans people existed.
That's how the Republicans want
it. They did not have access to any type of of the internet because a lot of them in that community don't have handheld devices, and to the extent that they have access to the internet, there's essentially controls put on it, parental control type of things, and happened to sort of sneak away with somebody's phone, get on a different Wi-Fi at a mall or something like that, and searched, boy who feels like a woman. I think that was, and discovered, oh my God, this isn't just me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is this is a bit remedial, but it does need to be stressed because of the way the Republicans attack this. this is a timeless human like thing with gender. Like this is I mean, Hitler attacked like folks who were studying this stuff. Literally the same exact thing. Like trans people exist throughout history, and this idea that it's some sort of like modern mind virus is just like it's just, I mean, just a fascist propaganda. Like
and cross-dressing and
objective.
drag in particular, which some of these bills target, a lot of them do, goes back to like ancient Rome and just performance art for decades and for centuries and centuries and centuries, and now it's grooming.
Deaths pulled from the future. This is what's going on in state legislatures. Meanwhile, at the New York Times, are there too many trans people? We credulously talked to 3 anti-trans hate group called the Family Research Group to find out. Without a doubt. And I don't think that that is, what the Times has been doing has been reprehensible. And if you read Jamel Bowie, actually, I think it was earlier this week or at the end of last week, I don't know. He wrote a piece that, and he in their op-ed section, that clearly is admonishing the New York Times, not by name. That's the thing, incidentally, that like a lot of these big media outlets really concerns them more than anything else. They don't mind the positions you take. They just don't like to be criticized by name. That is their big issue. It doesn't matter what it's on either. Chris from Southern Wisconsin. I'm a father of a high school freshman. Just this morning, another report of bullying and suicide from social media harassment. The question I have, if we're serious about children's mental health and screen time, can't we just federally ban these companies from allowing children on these platforms? Not to mention the school he goes to has no cell phone policy that is not enforced. These companies could use a driver's license to verify age. These companies already know everything on us, which would be another reason not to allow these companies to have a profile on all our children. With that said, we need to get Google out of our classrooms as they are just collecting data on every child. I definitely think that we can, I don't know at what age you would do it, but you could, I mean, technically like Instagram's not supposed to be for kids under age 13. I didn't know this. I didn't know this until my daughter was well past the age of 13. And, I mean, I think, look, schools keep soda out of their schools. Mm-hmm. If you can keep soda out, if you can justify that, I think like I can understand like maybe, kids need phones. No smartphone policy. Flip phones only.
Yeah.
I mean, and like
I mean, Holly has proposal today that he's talking about no under 16 social media. I don't know.
I don't know if schools can do it, but I think that that tech companies should be regulated to enforce it.
Yeah.
There's ways to do it. You could have schools do it. You could have,
no smartphones?
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
parents are going to get their kids smartphones.
Well, the kids can have smartphones.
That's
you just
fine
can't bring them to school. I mean, you can't bring scooters to my kid's school.
Yeah, well, if the school wants to collect it at the start of the day and give it back at the end of the day, that
so you can bully them after hours.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just that seems really the preponderance of these things. It's like people's third arm.
I'll tell you. Here's the thing: is that if the school says it's not allowed, it is much easier for parents to not allow it for their kids. Mm-hmm. The hard part for me, like, and it was a different era. I mean, it was just in the introduction of smartphones. But when my daughter comes home and is like, all my friends have smartphones at recess, and I'm the only one who doesn't. Yeah. You're like, well, I mean, this is like, how do I keep my kid from being, like ostracized at school?
Yeah.
If they're not allowed to if they're not allowed to have a smartphone in school, if you have it at home, you can't control that. But you just basically say like, school does not allow, don't bring your smartphones. Do not bring your smartphones. You can bring a flip phone. Kids get it at the end of the day, or they, put it in a locked locker or something like that. And that's it.
But I think the broader problem of like depression in kids and stuff, like I think this goes back to those news stories we saw with like the dads on duty in New Orleans. And it's like, oh, look at all these dads given the opportunity to come be like hall monitors in their school. We need to massively expand public education and have parents more involved, and like this, it become more of a community hub and empowered to be that way. So you don't have massive class sizes. You have more parental involvement in their kids' lives because they're not having to work like 45 hours a week to pay for stuff. Like those are the real things. And like all this stuff about banning kids, like I understand the impetus, but I just think like we need a more revolutionary approach.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the more holistic approach, obviously, like, of course, but specifically, I think like schools could do that. There's no reason why they can't. They do it with soda. They don't sell soda there.
And I used to remember the Fruitopia machine in my elementary school, and I used to hit that up every afternoon.
Calling from a 646 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is you. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Patrick from Pelham Bay.
Patrick from Pelham Bay. What's on your mind?
Have you covered Brett Weinstein lately?
I have not. I'm sorry to say.
That's very good for you, because I've unfortunately been listening to him, and he interviewed somebody called Dr. Mike Mew. I don't know if you've ever heard about mewing.
Like meowing?
Nope. Introduce us.
Mew, like the Pokemon?
MEWING. So it's kind of. No, not really. It's when you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth and tense up. And so this pseudoscientific doctor, Mike Mew, he was just platformed by Brett for about 3 hours, and they talked about evolutionary dentistry and how you should eschew all forms of modern dentistry. Basically, don't get braces. Just let your wisdom teeth come in and fuck up your mouth.
I thought that was what you were supposed to do to like cure a brain freeze. Put the tongue on the roof of your mouth.
Oh, interesting.
Actually solves all sorts of problems.
Yeah, I didn't know.
So wait, what is my tongue doing? Like, so if I do that on a regular basis, what's going to happen? My kids aren't going to need braces?
So apparently, I mean, you already look great, but it's apparently supposed to give you a better jawline. But it's just amazing. And also, this doctor, Mike Mew, has been put under he was under a disciplinary investigation for his dentistry practices. And it's just amazing that Brett Weinstein, who has this PhD in evolutionary biology, is just hawking these falsehoods. It's terrible.
I think we'll have to look into that.
I've heard something about that. The guy's also like, I think, been on Rogan, maybe, is that right? With this sort of quack technique.
Yeah, it's definitely in the bro science sphere.
I can tell you, like, I cannot heap enough disrespect on Brett Weinstein's academic credentials. I think he's a charlatan. I think it's a lot easier to graduate from some of these programs than people think. And yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
And
also, you should.
I think, I think there's going to be an interesting thing, particularly in that like sort of like sphere, and it's already started to happen, right? And that is the political moment that they had found a home in has dissipated. Like it has become too polarized in that area, like where it's just sort of like it's too clear to people that if you are saying like, well, we got to be worried a little bit about, like, the Times can get away with it a little bit still, but online you can't get away with that sort of like, we're just asking questions about what's happening with all these things. Like the whole concept of the IDW, that whole area, the middle, whatever it is that they thought they were in, has not held. And so he doesn't have the ability to go and compete on real, sort of like full on right-wing territory. That's why they went with that whole COVID sort of like vax stuff, because, and if I had to make a prediction about Brett Weinstein, he is going to be full on into that world of like getting wooier and wooier, as it were. And
I think it's going to be remunerative for him, because he and his wife are going to teach for Peterson Academy. So they're probably going to make thousands of dollars off of these pseudoscience seminars.
Without a doubt. I think that's where it's going. I think it's going into that sort of like, into that sort of, it's going to get a little bit more George Norrie and Art Bell and Coast to Coast, if you will. And, on some level, I don't think it's healthy for society, but it's not quite as problematic.
Well, I do think it's exploiting this tension that people feel where we are in a for-profit healthcare system in this country, and having your health problems solved cheaply by your own tongue movements is tantalizing to people, because otherwise they'd have to spend a lot of money. You could just will yourself into having to do your own dentistry as opposed to, I don't know, spend thousands of dollars out of pocket to get something fixed. That's what they're
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, that it dovetails with libertarian ideology that you can bootstrap your way towards away from malocclusion and towards healthy jaw alignment.
Right.
It's incredibly strange.
I also want to thank you for now making me completely obsessed with trying to like push my tongue up into the top of my roof. Thank you for that.
Enjoy that tonight. Yeah. Also,
Thanks.
you guys should check out the Decoding Gurus podcast. They do deep dives on members of the intellectual dark web, and it's really interesting to listen to.
Yeah, Cosign, great podcast.
Decoding Gurus.
Decoding the Gurus. Yep.
Nice.
Appreciate the call.
Just sounds like face yoga. Have you ever heard of that?
They don't want you to know about that.
Right, it's being suppressed.
We would tell you about face yoga, but then we would have to kill you. Let's take another call. Calling from a 626 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me right?
I can. Who's this? Where are you calling?
Hi. Hi, this is Rin. Hi, yes, my name's Rin. I'm calling from California.
Rin from California. What's on your mind?
Rin.
Rin.
Like R-I-N.
Rin.
Yeah.
California. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just watching your segment and just hearing all this fucking rhetoric. Oh, am I allowed to curse? I'm really sorry.
Well, I mean, it's okay.
Well, I'm hearing all these fucking rhetoric about what's going on and everything, and especially with the what was that segment earlier? The one with in the Senate, because during that Senate hearing, it was very World War III rhetoric. It was like pro World War III rhetoric. Like the Republicans are pushing for a fucking war.
I'm not sure.
Like they were screaming about like TikTok is grooming their children, grooming children. It's like,
oh, you're talking about
the trans stuff.
Oh, the trans stuff. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yes, the trans issue, because I have a feeling that Republicans are pushing to become the next Nazi Germany.
I mean,
at this stage,
I think, if you listen to even what our guest yesterday, Gerald Horn, was arguing, that there is a fascistic tradition in this country that is, counter-revolutionary. And, he's talking about things like, specifically like, the American Revolution, he says, was counter-revolutionary. The Texas Revolution was counter-revolutionary, but I think he would also argue that there are smaller, not necessarily what you would call full-scale revolutions that are or counter-revolutions that we see, and I think we see that, quite a bit. And I think this is, what we're seeing now is this sort of like reactionary, counter-revolutionary move by Republicans. It is fascistic without a doubt. It is authoritarian without a doubt, and it's scary
and hysterical. I think like both like the Nazi element and like our own stuff. Like there's like an element of witch hunting sort of converted into a new form, but it's the same sort of hysterical energy.
Ren, appreciate the call.
Well, the thing is, like, they were trying to blame China. They wanted to blame Chinese. They want to blame the Chinese on everything.
Right. Well, part of this is like they're just try and get as much fear into any given soundbite as possible. I mean, we saw it with Tucker Carlson and JD Vance talking about the train derailment, and every time JD Vance says something, Tucker comes back with wokeness. And, this is really about, getting trans people, or, I mean, they will bring this up at any point, because at this point, they have such a narrow sort of palette of issues, and they will just hit them over and over and over again. Appreciate the call, Ren.
What's scary is going to be like I'm scared that like they're going to start shooting up like Chinese embassies, like.
You're not wrong to be scared about that. Ren, tune in on Thursday. We're gonna have somebody on. Was that this or the next week? This Thursday, we're gonna have somebody on to talk about China hawkery.
Appreciate the call.
Please, I want to hear about this conversation because, as a Taiwanese person, like, I don't like the fact that like this whole China scare is like being blown out of proportion. And when I hear about the whole China situation, you know, China isn't. The thing is like, China isn't that bad of the enemy. It's just that they're just there to exist. And meanwhile, Republicans are just fucking pushing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not convinced. I mean, to be honest with you, and I appreciate the call. Like Emma says, she's going to be talking about on Thursday. But part of this is also really, I mean, the Democratic Party has also been involved in this on some level. And it is because there is this sort of like twisted concern about corporate dominance. And so much of that is a function of like the idea that we need to be able to dominate and determine the rules of trade, essentially. And it is really not to the benefit of the average American person. It's one thing to say that we want to onshore some of our industry. It's another to say that we need to cripple Chinese industry.
Yeah. I mean, this was Chuck Schumer's. He had that bill he was trying to get passed, which finally did. It was part of the CHIPS Act or whatever for years at this point. It's like the only bipartisan thing in Washington right now. China hawkery.
Calling from a 919 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 919.
Is this me?
Yep.
Hello, is this me?
It's
yes,
you.
it is.
Okay, hi, thanks. First time actually calling in. Try this. Okay, my name is Hua. I'm calling from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hua from Raleigh, North Carolina. What's on your mind?
Right. Well, a number of things. I will probably be calling back a number of times in the future too. But today you talked about the whole issue with environmental justice, and that got me thinking about a number of things. One of them being, so I do a lot of work surrounding environmental justice issues here locally as far as activism goes. And I've done research fellow at the local EPA at the Research Triangle Park. And first thing that crossed my mind was just how I feel like EPA admin is very derelict in their duty in terms of addressing environmental concerns and, well, just like especially on the research aspect. I was involved in a couple of labs that was doing research on PFAS. You know, that's kind of
forever chemicals.
Forever chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm free to say this because now I'm not affiliated with the EPAs. And one thing for sure is that the admin at the EPA that's in charge of the research aspects of EPA, I don't know if it's still the same thing. And this is probably going to cost my future if I ever decide to go back to work for EPA, but I don't care. The admin at the time when I was a research fellow were primarily comprised of people who were affiliated or directly coming from the Department of Defense. And they put in a lot of restrictions as to like what the researchers get to, which PFAS compound the researchers get to study.
Right. Because so they're using the other ones, right?
Right. Right. You're right. Exactly. And also the other is,
how long have those people been at the EPA?
I've only been a research fellow there for a year, but I imagine they've been there for a while now, and I don't imagine them leaving anytime soon. So,
you don't know how long they've been there?
Probably longer than I have.
Well, no,
Because the issue
I don't doubt that they've been there for longer than a year.
Well, yeah.
but I guess my point is that like one of the agendas of the Trump administration was a full-on assault at the EPA. Like Secretary.
Attrition. Yes.
By attrition, and I mean they put in personnel, political appointees who are going to make it relentless and horrible for EPA. And I've talked to an EPA lawyer in the past who was working there during the Trump years, and they were younger, and they were recently in, and they're like, I'm just trying to hang in there with the hopes that Biden will come in, or not Biden, but that Trump will be gone. And they said like the attrition was enormous because people were just like so demoralized. And it's you can read all these stories came out like I would say 2 years ago almost to now, right after Biden was that all these stories about how the EPA was decimated. And my sense is that the EPA has not been a priority for this administration. It was not to say that they've consciously tried to assault it, but it's like I think there's like a limited amount of resources in terms of just like where their energies go towards. And my sense is EPA has not been one of those places where they have dedicated a lot of energy to.
Yeah, that has been what I'm getting as well. Even after I left, I have a couple of colleagues. It's kind of. It's not like that suddenly the research side of things is thriving, even though we probably should invest in research just because there's so many emerging contaminants. The algal bloom is an emerging problem with algae emitting cyanotoxins like I can name a few, microcystin or anatoxin and so forth. But as far as I know, the research is not like it's flourishing right now because of Biden. And I feel like one other issue is this is also a labor issue. During the Trump administration, which was when I was there for about a year, I think in 2018, I think, or 2019, he, I think, went and basically pushed for elimination of basically, how do I put this? He kept the union from being able to have a physical office. So basically that just means EPA scientists and staff and employees, if they have grievance or things like that, they no longer have a physical space or physical office to like go to talk to someone and say, I want to file a grievance. I have literally the office at the RTP Research Triangle, that office used to be like right next to the cafeteria. I've seen how like after the Trump push, we're like, okay, you no longer can get a physical space. That office got turned into like, it got whitewashed and became kind of a storage space for computers and stuff like that.
Let me just read two paragraphs here from a piece in the New York Times from I guess this is in February, March of last year. Yeah, March of 2021. Yeah. Mr. Trump's first administrator. I mean, just to remind people, Scott Pruitt. And Scott Pruitt was from Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. And he was the attorney general in Oklahoma. And literally his knowledge of the EPA was from lawsuits to prevent the EPA from doing their job in Oklahoma. That was his expertise.
Exactly.
And he removed the agency's web on climate change. He fired and barred independent scientific advisors who had received grants from the EPA. That was a policy the court ultimately found to be illegal. But, I mean, you've already pushed those people away. Then he replaced them with industry representatives. He rolled back scientifically supported policies such as limiting pollution from trucks with rebuilt engines after meetings with executives and lobbyists. Pruitt's successor, Andrew Wheeler, faced accusations that he repeatedly ignored and shut out his own scientists in decisions such as issuing rule curbing but not banning asbestos. Declaring the health effects of chlorofyrus, a widely used pesticide, unresolved, despite years of agency research proving its danger to infants, pushing through a policy which died in the courts ultimately to limit the type of health and epidemiological studies could be used to justify regulations. Who's going to stick around there? Like, who's going to stay, right? I mean, honestly, I mean, that's
right.
That's the agenda,
right?
And the thing is that this is like, you know, I mean, people have a hard time understanding this. Like, imagine if you had, let's say, like, just Twitter, for example. If somebody takes over Twitter and it gets saddled with that debt, and there's all those people who have left, the idea of being able to attract these people to come back, it's not going to happen overnight. And it's the only thing they would do. No. Imagine you were in charge of 12 Twitters or 15 Twitters, and you come in and it's like, you got to prioritize which Twitter you're going to rebuild. I mean, that's basically what's happening here. Hopefully, if there's a, you know, like, we'll start to see more action on that side, but appreciate the, I don't know if we will, but I hope we do. But listen, I got to jump. I appreciate the call.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, call back in another time.
I'll call back in future.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Let's get to this, the shooting thing.
Okay.
It's really horrible. Why don't you take this? You found this one.
Sure. And we also have that Jordan Peterson, which might be more fun half stuff and after we do this. But, so this is a TikTok from a student at Michigan State where the shooting took place later last night. As of now, 3 have officially died, 5 are injured in critical condition. And what's going to happen more often, given the preponderance of mass shootings in this country, is that this TikTok user, who's a student at Michigan State University, was also a survivor of another mass shooting, the Sandy Hook shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, when she was in elementary school. And here she is describing what it's like to live through 2 mass shootings in her lifetime.
So the reason I'm making this video right now is because it is almost 1 a.m. and I am currently directly across the street from where the shootings at Michigan State occurred. I am 21 years old, and this is the second mass shooting that I have now lived through. 10 years and 2 months ago, I survived the Sandy Hook shooting. And when I was crouched in the corner in school in Newtown, Connecticut on 12/14/12, I was hunched in the corner with my classmates for so long that I actually got a PTSD fracture in my L4 and L5 in my right lower back. I now have a full-blown PTSD fracture that flares up anytime I am in a stressful situation or anything occurs that's aggressive like that. The fact that this is the second mass shooting that I have now lived through is incomprehensible. My heart goes out to all the families and the friends of the victims of this Michigan State shooting. But we can no longer just provide love and prayers. It needs to be legislation. It needs to be action. It's not okay. We can no longer allow this to happen. We can no longer be complacent. I'll forever be Sandy Hook strong and forever be Spartan strong.
And we should also say this mass shooting at Michigan State took place 5 years to the day from the Parkland shooting where 17 kids were killed. I mean, this is
America, right? This is the United States. There's going to be more copycats, as you say, right? Like on those days.
I think it's just a matter of time where it's just sort of like every time we hear obviously it's a matter of time, but it's going to become more common. We're going to be talking about a mass shooting, and we're going to be talking about it as the anniversary of another mass shooting. And you're going to have more instances where people have been involved in multiple mass shootings. And, this is the reality of this country. And frankly, I got to be honest with you, I think there's some things that we can do legislatively. It's unclear what those things are. We've already had in New York State a couple of our gun laws struck down. They're only going to get more aggressive in striking down gun laws. It's not going to get better till we get a different Supreme Court.
I mean, Ben Shapiro's out there saying, well, it was a black shooter, so of course it becomes a gun control conversation. It's like, I think it should be there, like a gun control conversation obviously needs to be had in this country, but also like, what conversation do you want to have? Like, should we just pass a mental health, mental health Medicare for all, which would, I don't know that would necessarily address all of the problems with guns in this country, because I think like fundamentally, like that's what happens when you have a lot of guns is people get shot. But we should at least be getting something out of that. But the conversation just gets short-circuited entirely before we even get to that.
Totally.
But if you look at like, there's a video on YouTube, mental health. Oh shoot, I just lost it. Mental health. Oh yeah, here it is. Mental health professionals speak out on Medicare for all. And all of them are like, you know, the main obstacle I see to caring for people is when it comes time to set up payment.
Yeah, I mean, when right-wingers talk about mental health, it's just a way to distract from targeting the manufacturing and sale of weaponry in this country. We're saying that and mental health care via Medicare for all, single-payer system in this country.
All right, final call of the day. I think it's going to be the final call. 308, where are you calling from? Who's this?
Hey, it is Trucker Kowalski. Is there too much background noise?
No. Where are you driving?
Yes. I've got a very expensive headset on.
Whoa.
My buddy. Yeah.
You sound like you're an airline pilot, sort of. I like it.
Nice. Well, I will make this brief, but I was passing through North Platte today. North Platte has the largest rail yard, I think, in North America, possibly the second largest. Anyways, massive rail yard, 5 miles by 2.5 miles of tracks to the Union Pacific. So as you can imagine, there's actually a lot of railroad workers in the state. Also, our reigning oligarch Buffett owns Burlington Northern Santa Fe, which is another massive rail company in Nebraska. Anyways, a few of my buddies who work in the railroad said that one of the reasons they want longer trains is to run them at slower speeds because they don't want to put money into track maintenance. So it's kind of like running less water pressure but more volume through a pipe, you know, try to keep the same amount of flow without the thing exploding. So that should be reassuring.
Yeah, nice that they don't want to spend. Yeah, that's amazing.
Why would we want to do that? It sounds woke.
Yeah, just another decision made in the C-suite of, well, I don't want to be the CEO that spends the next 10 years investing in our infrastructure. So why don't we just put it off until we can throw it to the next person? And then they do the same, and then sure enough, you have one of the worst rail line qualities in the world. We used to have the best back in the 80s. And I wonder what happened in the 80s.
Deregulation?
Yes. Also, another big thing with deregulation that a lot of people have already forgotten about, you guys haven't though, the big oil spill down in Kansas. That was another Trump deregulation effort in order for them to send more volume than the EPA wanted because the Department of Energy said it was okay. So the cost of deregulation, I guess, is our water, air, and health. Wonderful.
Appreciate.
Not a big teachy mood today.
I was going to say, appreciate the uplifting phone call. Thank you. Drive carefully, Kowalski.
Absolutely not. Everyone else, look out.
Thanks, Kowalski.
Thanks, man. Yeah, let's finish on Peterson so we get a
fun
little bit of fun.
Yeah.
A little bit of fun here.
Although this clip is pretty despicable at the same time. So there's that. There's always that with him.
This is Jordan Peterson. He is interviewing journalist Louise Perry. I don't know much about her. Do you know anything about her?
Never heard of her, but imagine probably going to get familiar.
This is on the Daily Wire. And they're, of course, talking about, what is it, property crimes?
Yeah, right.
I mean, yeah, women. That's it. Yeah,
but interchangeable.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Yeah. It's called a homonym.
Property crimes, crimes against women. Or actually, to be clear, I'm sorry. It's crime against the owner of the property. So it's really a crime against men. Let's be clear about that.
That it would hurt feelings. There's also, I think, an element of women being slightly physically frightened.
Right. Well, it boils down to personal rejection then, hey?
Yeah. Yeah. which is a painful thing to
Because
deliver.
that's the only excuse you have left.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, here's something else that's worth pondering. You talked about one of the advantages of the sexual revolution was the transformation of the idea that rape was a property crime, let's say, into a crime against the woman herself. And I would say, look, I have plenty of sympathy for that perspective. And I think it's fundamentally true. But I'm going to push back because, this is all very complicated. It isn't obvious to me.
Pause it for 1 second. I want to I got to imagine that most of the people listening, are following what he's saying here, but I really need people to fully, understand this. When I was born, I'm not that old. When I was born, in most states in this country, it may have been also even in Massachusetts, woman who was married to a man was just about his property. And I think in many states, like the crime of rape did not exist between a woman who was married to a man. It was impossible as a matter of law for that man to rape her. Didn't exist. It was not a crime. My mother, when I was I think I'm like 6, was not allowed to have a credit card in her name because she was a woman. This is 1972. It's not that long ago. This is like the Beatles were just breaking up. Let's put it that way. And so what he's talking about is that if someone raped a woman who was married, it was a property crime, as if somebody had come by and desecrated your car.
Yeah.
Well, we live in capitalism, and there's nothing worse than a property crime.
Or if you rape somebody's daughter, it's a crime against the father.
Yes, it was a crime against the husband, not against the woman. It was a crime against the man who owned the woman.
The property owner.
The property owner. So just go back so you can understand when he's like, well, I want to push back. It's fundamentally true, but I want to push back on that.
Have to be careful.
Got to be careful about, they're going to be walking around and having their own podcasts. And God.
Here's something else that's worth pondering. You talked about one of the advantages of the sexual revolution was the transformation of the idea that rape was a property crime, let's say, into a crime against the woman herself. And I would say, look, I have plenty of sympathy for that perspective.
Lots of sympathy.
And I think it's fundamentally true. But I'm going to push back because, this is all very complicated. It isn't obvious to me that offers women enough defense. And so the counter argument might be if untrammeled sexual access to a young woman is a crime, in order for that to be recognized as a crime properly, it has to be viewed as something that will bring the males on her side to her defense in principle. Now, maybe not, right? Because you could say, well, maybe we could set up a...
So this is a fundamentally conservative worldview. It's not the system that needs changing. We just need to feed more into patriarchy, right? Let's not challenge that notion. In order to get women's rights and a violent crime against her respected by a legal system, let's kind of turn the clock back and make it so that it's more of a crime against the men in her life. What if she doesn't have men in her life? Well, I don't know. So that she can be recognized. He shouldn't use his platform to challenge notions of patriarchy and to promote the idea that women in and of themselves are people who can experience crime and violent crime. Let's just make it a little bit more male focused, because he is speaking to young men, and what he fortifies with them on a daily basis with his show is the notion that their own grievances and that the harm that's imposed on them is the only real thing that matters in this world.
But I also why does he think that the only way to get majority of men to say let's not allow rapes in this society is to get them sort of financially on the hook or somehow, like to make it clear that materially that's like there's other reasons to not want people being raped.
Well, because you would have to empathize with women at that point. He's saying that rape is it will not get sufficiently prosecuted if it is not considered a crime against men. But that's how little he thinks of the men in his audience and how limited his capacity for empathy is because the men in his audience and he himself don't have the ability to see women as equal to themselves in agency, in emotion, in capacity to understand the world around them. And so that's why he has to frame it as a crime against men as well.
Well, he's also saying that laws are irrelevant on some level, because he's saying that if there isn't a sort of wide acceptance that rape is a bad thing by men, then the law is not going to be effective enough. The law is really, to him, just an extension of God anointing men as being in charge of society, and that the law is, in many respects, he's saying here, a fiction. If it is not embraced, if it is not enthusiastically, men aren't enthusiastically invested in that law. And he's not talking men generally. He's saying like literally
invested financially.
The gender of men. Like if it is not an affront to me, then the law be damned, is what he's saying. But let's just go back and let him speak.
The way this played out in history is like wealthy men could rape whatever women from lower classes they want, and if there's any complaint, it's like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Good thing, when women were literally chattel, good thing there was no rape back then, right? Because men were financially invested in that woman, the piece of property for him not getting ruined. Well, and so I didn't also realize that unmarried women can't get raped. Apparently, they can't get raped, or because
it's a crime against the father.
Or if they
case.
do, I guess right.
That's what it is. But like William Byrd, the main slave, or in the James River in Virginia in like the 18th century, has this whole diary, and he has multiple entries where he's like, I forced myself upon like a chambermaid and stuff like that. The only time he has any sort of repentance is when he got too drunk and came on to another man's wife at a party.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So go back a little bit.
Is a crime. In order for that to be recognized as a crime properly, it has to be viewed as something that will bring the males on her side to her defense in principle. Now, maybe not, right? Because you could say, well, maybe we could set up a society where merely, quote, transgressing the rights of a woman to say no is sufficient. But it's not obvious to me that that's sufficient. Like maybe sufficient means not only do you violate the integrity of the woman in a fundamental sense, but you enrage all of her male protectors. And then that's enough of a barrier, because God only knows how much barrier we need. And obviously, well, you just laid out a bunch of problems, especially now that the pill introduces, and we should stress that. The problem that women have in saying no once they're on the pill is that it's instantly personal. And that means the woman has to deliver a pretty hard blow. And that's especially problematic if she's somewhat potentially interested in the guy, right? How do I say no without hurting his feelings, alienating him, making him into an enemy, looking like a prude? And I mean, when you're 16, you don't know the answer to any of those questions. Like, you're not sophisticated enough to. And I saw this in my clinical practice all the time. I had lots of women in my clinical practice who were abused serially. And, they were generally stunningly unsophisticated in their conduct. And I'm not trying to blame the victim. I'm just saying that sophisticated women, and those are often those who've been.
I pause it because he won't finish his thought. He won't finish his thought here because at one point he starts to realize, like, he starts to hear what he's saying here. Now, just imagine, apply this to this notion, if he would be okay with this. Maybe we need to have people own all of the property in my home so that if someone was to steal it, there'd be enough people who are upset to make it a real violation as opposed to it being stolen from me. I mean, that's what he's saying there, except for his is actually more disgusting because it is, I don't know, like, do we need to own, let's put it this way, do we as a society, or does there need to be a group of people, or half of society needs to in some way, or there needs to be some people in Jordan Peterson's life who owns him as chattel, so that if someone comes up and punches him in the face, it becomes illegal enough that people care.
He could get raped. Jordan Peterson could get raped. Who would that crime then be? For the legal system to take it seriously. If if Jordan Peterson were raped.
Own him.
I mean, I'm like, this is very dangerous. Like, this is very, very dangerous. And this is just a natural progression of who he's spoken to, men who are frustrated and are looking for women to blame, right? It's always from the perspective of the male. It's never about extending empathy to others. And the actual natural conclusion of rape not being taken seriously and crimes against women being taken seriously should be more empathy should be extended to women, and you should be able to understand their experiences. Not, well, men need to have more stake in this for this to be taken seriously. And what he was saying about the pill, it makes things more complicated. Implicit in his analysis, whatever you can decipher from it, is that it's
you're giving women too many choices.
Rape is a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding, and the 16-year-olds, they don't have the agency or the sophistication to stand up for themselves. But that's not what rape is. It's also not a violation of someone's integrity. That's what he kept saying, the woman's integrity. It's a violent crime. It's a violent assault. That's what rape is.
But Emma, what you don't understand is if you allow women or girls to have sex without becoming pregnant, and you give them control over their own ability to get pregnant, then they may decide they want to have sex without the consequence of pregnancy, and that complicates things because then their little pea brains have to determine, do I want to have sex with this person or not? Even though there's no consequence in terms of a child, and that complicates things, and then the man is not sure and he rapes her because she can't figure it out.
And that reminds me,
pill's a bad thing.
all these unsophisticated, and I'm not trying to blame the victims, but these girls, they don't know their ass from their elbows, and they keep getting serially abused, and I have no idea why a psychological organization would want to maybe review my credentials on this stuff.
Talk about, honestly, talk about just sort of like a walking opportunity for a class action suit.
You go from the pill to unsophisticated, serially abused students. Like, what are we?
It's
and
because
you don't finish a thought a single time.
Well, it gets complicated because they have the ability to determine that they might want to have sex without getting pregnant.
They're stupid, and they walk right into these things.
All right, let's just keep playing this.
If a man gets raped, I want to know who has the stake in solving that crime. I just want to know.
Stunningly unsophisticated in their conduct. And I'm not trying to blame the victim. I'm just saying that sophisticated women, and those are often those they've had a lot of good relationships with men, brothers and fathers in particular.
Thanks, bros.
Sophisticated women signal to men who are getting a little pushy, in no uncertain terms, very early in the pushing game, that no is the answer.
Stop it. Pause
Right.
for a sec. Okay, so that is him saying that women who have had good relationships with men, because it all stems from it.
We set you straight.
Yeah, right. They are sophisticated enough to know when to say no. The unsophisticated types, people who might not have had good relationships with men, they don't know how to stand up to men, and that's kind of on them, right? Or their upbringing. It's definitely not on the rapist because they're unsophisticated.
It's complicated. There are two parties involved here. There is the sometimes a little bit too pushy men, and then the stupid women who. That's why they get raped.
And they might get drunk too, right? That would be very stupid and low class.
You don't want to drink around a pushy boy.
All men are sophisticated. Some are just slightly more pushy than others. And then you have stupid women
girls
and
walking around like bimbos.
Now, I want to make it clear.
And it's complicated.
Not all women are stupid. The ones who have been trained by men in their life are more smart.
There you go.
But the ones who have not, those are the ones who don't know how to deal with a slightly pushy male who wants to slightly pushy themselves into that woman against her wishes. But she's unsophisticated and doesn't know how to deal with it.
And I'm not blaming the victim.
And I want to make that clear. I'm not blaming the victim. I've made that clear. In fact, I said that said those words just now as a way of proving that I'm not blaming that stupid idiot who was untrained. It's not her fault that she was not trained properly by men to deal with a slightly pushy man.
Pushy.
And of course, let's have some sympathy for that man because society has told him he's got to be aggressive. And she's not giving it up because she's not smart enough to know.
And she might be on the pill, right?
She could be on the pill.
Procreate with no consequence.
That complicates things. Why is she on the pill?
Just have an older brother instead.
Why would you go on the pill? It's because you like sex. So then I have to, as a slightly pushy man, I have to compute. You like sex, but you won't have it. That hurts my feelings.
It's not adding up.
That hurts my feelings, and that's difficult. But I'm not blaming her, even though it's her fault.
Signal to men who are getting a little pushy, in no uncertain terms, very early in the pushing game, that no is the answer.
It's a game.
Right? If you do that really early on in the investigation, you don't have to use much force. But unsophisticated women, they can't do that at all. They don't know how. And then what happens is they run into an unsophisticated guy. He's too dumb to pick up any clues. And then by the time she really wants to say no, she's already on the bed. I'll give you an example of this. I had one client who
pig. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, honestly, is there not like a board isn't there a certification they can pull from this guy?
Oh no, he's being investigated and going to lose it.
Oh,
that's in the story, and
that's fair.
I mean, they're canceling.
It's unsophisticated. I'm being canceled. It's wokeness because I'm on the Daily Wire. That's what it is.
Jordan Peterson says Ontario psychologist license may be suspended over public statements, and I could say can't happen soon enough. College of Psychologists of Ontario.
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, it's not the fault of the man that they haven't been. I mean,
the whole like meets an unsophisticated man. Like, yeah, that's because of like the rape culture that you basically exist to apologize.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. He is saying that rape is almost always in this analysis a function of a misunderstanding between an unsophisticated woman and a man who might be unsophisticated but mostly just doesn't understand what in society is ruining his masculinity. And then at the same time, he's pretending that he wants rape to be investigated more by making rape a crime against men who are either married to or the father of the woman. He doesn't care about the enforcement of rape because the entire underpinning of his argument is rape apology and rape denial.
And of course, like there's some I mean, what's fascinating about this too is that he wants men to be invested through some form of ownership of the woman in the crime of rape. Otherwise, they won't uphold that crime there. But of course, it's unclear how many men are unsophisticated. It's pretty rare. And of course, if you have an unsophisticated man meeting an unsophisticated woman, then of course it is the fault of the woman for not at the beginning of the game that I call get to rape. That's the game I call it. Or get to at the end, the investigation, as I call it. The investigation.
I call it pushy ball.
It is the responsibility of the unsophisticated woman to stop the unsophisticated man at that point, but she wouldn't know how to do that unless she's been properly trained by men. So there we go. And I guess we have a read for Jeremy's Razors.
The pushing game.
Oh God, unbelievable! That guy is really, really disturbing.
No, I mean, the audience, his audience is he's encouraging his audience to sexually assault women, basically.
And it's not so bad. I'm just trying to explain away why they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Jordan Peterson, who he's always been. The only reason it's confused people is he had like a glow up from the Atlantic and places like that, which like told him to lose the fedora and like couch his statements a little bit more soft. But like you go back to 2011, he's wearing a fedora saying it's all psychopathic boys who are gonna like be empowered to have women, and just like insane like misogynistic fever dreams by this guy.
Yeah. And also I just think people like thought that, 12 rules for life, it's self-help, and then so many
Sam,
people
you got to
have
get
been
on your
filtered.
13 rules.
Yeah, right, or
13 rules
13,
for
sorry.
life.
12 rules is easier because it's you can divide it into 2. Mm-hmm. By a 2, it's a factor of 2. That's the key.
Do 666 rules.
Numerology
There,
from
yes,
Jordan Peterson.
Of course. It's yin and yang. 6 and 6.
That's ancient.
All right, folks. It's the end of our phone call portion of our program. It is also rapidly becoming the end of our... I got to go. I don't even have time for any more. One more I am, and that is it. I'm sorry, folks. I've got to run. Got to. Meg from Portland. I think the Secretary of Transportation should resign over these freight derailments at a minimum.
Be fired.
Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. See you folks tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the nets are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid.